Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to episode 64 of Faith Practically. I'm Darian Claxton. My guest today is my good friend, Stephen Drakes. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, my man? How you feeling?
I'm good, man. So good to be on with you today, man. Let's bow our heads for prayer real quick.
All right.
Heavenly Father, not by might, nor by power, but by your spirit, leading God in conversation today. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
So I'm so excited to have you on, man. Me and this brother go way back, man. How long has it been, man? What, 25 years?
Yeah, at the least.
At the least. Yeah. We have some escapades. We got war stories, a lot of dirt we did. But here we are now talking. I never would have imagined the things that we were doing back then. Here we are on a faith-based show talking about how good God is and talking about marriage of all things. That's going to be our topic today. So, hey, Steve, can you just introduce yourself to those who don't know you? What are some of, what do you do? And what is your passion? And as it kind of bridges into this topic about marriage?
Sure. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Drakes, as Darian said. I am a musician, to say the least. I am a writer. I am a producer, an entertainer. And lately, and most of all, I'm a teacher now. I'm a music teacher. That's kind of a side thing, but it's my passion. It's my passion to pass along the passion that I have and had, even when I was younger, to the younger generation, people who want to fulfill their dreams and help them along their path.
Yeah, man, that's a lot of what we did back in the day was side by side on the piano together, or I'll be on the piano and you'll be singing because he sings and plays. Very talented brother, man. So happy to have you on. I remember when I first launched this podcast, it was audio only, and you were one of the brothers who I reached out to for advice on topics. And the first thing you said was like, man, we need a podcast about marriage. Because I believe at that time you had maybe not even a year into your marriage. Correct. You're like, this is a good topic. And so now here we are full circle. And I want to talk about marriage, but specifically from the standpoint of someone who has been playing the field. And I want to get transparent, you know what I'm saying? Because anybody who knows you knows the life that you live. I mean, in the music industry, it's difficult, right? It's difficult to navigate through relationships, whether you have one or whether you are trying to get into one. So I want to talk just kind of about what were your thoughts about marriage as you were younger? What are some of the things that appealed to you? What are the things that kind of shied you away from the concept of marriage as you were growing up?
Very good question. I guess to put it simply, marriage wasn't on my mind. You know what I mean? But I did know, and this is going to sound cliche, I did know that whenever I decided, if I ever decided to get married, I wanted it to be literally like how my parents were, and their circumference. They made sure that whatever example it was, whether it was teaching my brother and myself and my sister, the values that we should have, especially as young Black children in America, or young Black children also as Christians in America. But I also love the fact that my dad always, and our family being from the Caribbean, it's a different way of teaching. Right. You know what I'm saying? That's the side. That's a teaching and a lesson in itself that a lot of people can relate and may not be able to. But marriage wasn't always on my mind, if that makes sense. I didn't know how to duplicate that. Yeah. So you were thinking pretty much that it either could not happen, or you were thinking it was something that was so far down the line that you didn't want to think about it right now. Was it something that you aspired to, or did you think it was antiquated? Like the notion of settling down with one person and putting in the work and having the kids and doing that lifestyle. Was that something that was practical for you? Practical, yes and no. I think that because of the way I was raised in a solid communicative home, that in the back of my mind, it's always been something that I wanted. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's always something that I wanted. I think just seeing the path and the communication of how we grew up, I didn't know how to find that. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I didn't know how to find someone to compare to that situation. But yes, I always did strive to be married, if that makes sense.
What are some things that you looked for? Like, what did you think was important in a mate back then in your teens and in your 20s versus maybe you got a little bit older? Did any of those qualities change or were they always the same?
Oh, they changed drastically. I didn't know what I was looking for back then. I think back then I may have just wanted a follower. You understand what I'm saying? My father always taught us to be leaders. And even though I didn't have a household back then, I wanted to be perceived as a leader, no matter where I was, what location, what day, what time, and who I was with. I wanted to be a leader. So a lot of the listening skills were not there. I didn't take the time to understand that listening, that people have their own personalities. People are their own people. You can also be with another leader. Every leader had to follow at some time. So I don't think I was a listener back then. So there's a lot of qualities that I didn't know to look for back then versus now. It's a blessing. Yeah, it's a blessing because every day that you live now, you don't want to live in the past, but I tend to look back in the past and I give thanks. I do.
So let's go into the past. We're going to get as transparent as we're comfortable. Let's talk about bad relationships.
Sure.
And even calling them bad because we're Christians and because we know about God's providence. We know that everything we went through led us to a point where we are now. We're both happily married. We're both fathers, and There was a progression. What are some things that you experienced in previous relationships that you learned from? Maybe some things you had to repeat over and over again until you finally learned. What are some things you drew from those relationships that helped you get to where you are now and you were able to finally find that elusive, monogamous marriage, perfect relationship, as it were?
Right. Wow. Very, very good point. There's a lot of little things that they equate to where I am now. But I think for me, what it was, and it was a blessing and a curse to me, being raised as a young Christian. We are raised to be givers, teachers at the same time, but to be givers. Personally, for me, if we're being completely transparent, that was the gift and the curse, because it put me in a position to where I wanted to change people and change their thought process, to let them know that, hey, you don't have to think this way. You don't always have to think this way. Things will be okay. Or if you try this route, if you drive down this route, you may end up in a better destination. It was hard trying to convince. And then you spend a lot of your energy. I spent a lot of my energy trying to convince and convey, and it can take away from who you are to where you're in their manifold. Now it's a manifestation of what they see in you and not what you see for yourself. You know what I mean? I mean, that's pretty much it. I had to let people be people,
But what does that look like, though? Because there are situations where someone that you are with, they are doing something, or there's a quality that does need to change. That is either it's something that's negative for themselves, like maybe someone who is, you see qualities and gifts and they're not being ambitious. And so you want to encourage them out of that, or the things that they do that cross your boundaries and you want to let them know that. So how do you find a balance between letting them be kind of who they are, who God made them to be, but also saying, hey, you know what, I want to pull you. I want to make you, I want to help you to be better. And I also want to make sure that our relationship is good. So I have to communicate my feelings to you as opposed to keeping them all in, letting you be you. But then I start to feel resentful because you were just like pushing my buttons. What does that balance look like?
Well, the balance, I think, comes from the very, very beginning. It's the introduction and the representative of yourself that you choose to present. You have to be, now this sounds cliche again, it's not always as easy as it seems. You have to be upfront with who you are and what you're aspiring to achieve from the very beginning. I wasn't always like that. It wasn't always, because things were situational. Things tended to look really good and happy and, flowers and butterflies in the beginning, to a lot of the conversations that you probably should have had, or I should have had, didn't happen. They were skipped over because we were in the honeymoon phase without a ring. You see what I mean? So letting people be people should always be a mantra. It should always be a motto. Let people be people. But you have to let those people understand what you expect. So that way, if they choose to go a different path and go against the grain, you can't be mad. You won't be as hurt. It's easier for you to make a decision because you know that you were upfront from the very beginning. You see what I mean? You can make a decision, say, this person decides that they don't want to be on this ride alongside of me. It's easier to make a decision to walk away.
And talk about that decision. How does somebody get to that point? Because we're talking about someone escaping this lifestyle of, going from relationship to relationship, so you have the one side is where people are constantly, we're going to look later when we look at Samson's, our case study. Constantly you have someone who is going from relationship to relationship. They're very fickle, right? But there are situations where people on the other side, they are in a relationship much longer than they should have been, right? And so for you, in your experience, what was a deciding factor? Like, this is not healthy for me. This is problematic for me. This is not what my ideal relationship looks like. I need to leave this, as opposed to I can fix this. How did you make that distinction?
I didn't make it on my own. I had to be hurt. I think that this is a personal opinion, but I think that people need to be hurt. You will never know the joyous side or the greener side. To be honest with you, you will never know what love should be if you don't know what it's really not. I had to be hurt. With me being hurt, though, it came because I was jumping around. I purposefully did not give myself a chance to stay in one spot because I was avoiding being hurt and wasting time and knowing that at the same time.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk to that person. And maybe we're talking about a brother, maybe a sister, who is afraid of being hurt. And so that's why they're moving from relationship to relationship. What do you tell that person? I mean, so yes, you can say it's good to be hurt in a certain way because you know what not to do. Maybe it's good to be in a bad situation with someone and realize these are the qualities that I should have been looking for. These qualities I thought that were important are not as important. What do you tell that person who says, I want to escape this rat race, as it were, but I seem to be bumping into the same situations over and over again, and I'm just tired of putting my heart through the ringer? What kind of hope can you give to that person?
That's a situation where they have to find who they are. And I don't want to say find out what they want. I want to say who they are, because including myself, you will find yourself in the same situation, maybe a different intro, but the same song. You know what I mean? It will be the same pathway, and it's because it's your comfort zone. Whether you create that oasis with the relationship and you say, I'm going to make it this way because I feel comfortable, and you're scared of change, or you just feel as if I can't do better. But that's something, and that's where the quote that says the race is not for the swift comes in, because there is no timeline, on correcting yourself. It can take forever, and as a matter of fact, every day you should be trying to make yourself better. But it can take forever to know what you think you deserve and what you want for yourself and who you are.
What's the one thing that you would take from, if you think about your worst relationship, what's the one thing that you would take from that actually, I don't know if you went the other way, when you found your wife, but something when you left that relationship with this key point, this thing that you said, I'm never going to do this again, or I'm going to look for this again, or this is a way that I'm going to frame my emotions. What's one thing that you took from whatever that worst relationship looked like that has helped you in your current marriage?
I stopped looking for signs.
Explain that.
Yeah. So the downfall to bouncing from relationship to relationship is you take a piece of that puzzle every time you move. Every time you make a move, you take a piece of that puzzle, and subconsciously you take the pieces into every relationship. Now, it can even be worse if you think that you found something that you're trying to have a hold on and to make better and make something substantial, but you haven't let go of those pieces. You understand what I'm saying? When those pieces are still in your mind, one little thing can bring those back to the surface. It could be a totally different situation, but you're so quick in maneuvering, and you're trying your best to avoid that situation that you either some people do nothing, or like myself, I tried to avoid it and I moved on to the next situation. I never had a strong foundation. Everything was built on sand, because once I saw a sign that I thought could possibly be a disaster, I made a move as quick as I could. My current situation, and we'll get back into the past and years, the earlier years, but the reason that I am in the current situation that I am is because my wife is a leader as well. She's very, 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 very intelligent, and physically she's beautiful to me. She always will be. Her intelligence is beautiful to me.
Yeah.
What made me stop and shut up for a second, to be honest, was the first time she told me no. You know what I mean? It made me realize that, I'm a leader, but I think I need a leader. I think I need this. It's literally the better half.
Yeah.
Not the other half, the better half. It's the half of you that you lost, were too scared to find, or not comfortable bringing to the surface. It's the other half of you that person brings. And my wife brings that for me. It's the other half that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready to be that person. She brings that out of me. When I wanted to sway a situation and make sure that I stayed on this path, and we're going to go on this path because I said this is the path we're going to take, and this is my comfort zone, she said no and took me out of my comfort zone. And that, I think, was the first time when I fell in love with my wife.
Wow. Now, was that scary at first? And the reason why I asked that is because I believe there are people who God has placed, I wouldn't say their soulmate, but God has placed somebody in their life that was going to be instrumental in their growth. And they do exactly what you said your wife did. They push back. They demonstrate a level of individuality that you were not expecting. You were hoping to be able to tell you this is how it's done, and you were supposed to accept it and be done with it. And when they push back, they get so scared, they leave a blessing that God put in front of them. So how did you react at first to that? And was it something that maybe drew you closer to her, or did it take some time to realize that was not a liability, that was an asset?
Ooh, I love that. It took time. That was a battle in itself. That is that right there is the fork in the road where a lot of people get lost. Because that's one of the first lessons that you have to be able to be honest with yourself. You have to be able to say, I'm not used to this. This may be right, because no is a good word for everybody. Yes, it's beautiful. No is a good word for everybody. You know what I mean? You need that difference. And because I was scared of different. Well, let me not say different. I was scared of, I guess, the word commitment, but commitment is so broad to me. So it was the point that I had to realize that she is her own person. I have to, in order for me to be better for myself and for her, I have to allow her to be her while she allows me to be me in a respectful boundary. And it made me realize that all of these years I have been trying to force my light onto people. You know, living in darkness, literally living in darkness and trying to force my light and let people see my vision. People will listen to your vision. They won't always see your vision. They don't have to follow your vision. People have visions of their own. But when you find someone who actually agrees with your vision and shows you another path to head down in the same goal, you have to take that. But you have to take that.
I love that. I love that. When would you say that you knew? You know, I think about when I met my wife at Oakwood, and I knew there was something special about her from jump. But like, we didn't get married till 10 years later. You know what I mean? And there were certain qualities that I saw in her that, you know, we were just friends, just hanging out, movie buddies, whatever, what have you. And then I would date other women, and then I'm still looking for these qualities over here. And I remember the specific point. It was 4 years before we got married and 2 years before we got together that I realized that she was one. What would you say that watershed moment was for you when you were like, you know what, these particular qualities I'm seeing, the pushing back, whatever would have you, this is the one for me? How did you know that?
My wife pushed me. So, you know, my passion is music. Yeah. My passion will always be music because it also guide my day. You know, if you're a musician, as you are yourself, you understand that it can sway, it can sway the calm attitude and the beast. My wife made me realize that passion and profession are two separate things.
Wow.
You know, she was always a supporter of my music. When I tried to impress her. As beautiful as she is, I tried to impress her and show her off. This is my wife, and she's coming with me backstage to my shows, and she's getting the VIP treatment alongside of me, and she's seeing it, and she wasn't impressed. You know what I mean? Everybody who I did that to or brought along, just for maybe the one day or night ride, was flabbergasted, as I expected, and that's exactly what I wanted. My wife wanted me to be me and enjoy myself. She didn't care about what came with it. She also let me know that either I am going to stay steadfast with my passion, or I'm going to use a profession to build my passion. When she said that, I realized then and there, I realized that she's trying to make me bigger than I saw myself. That was the moment that I said, I think I want to marry this chick.
Wow.
Seriously. You know, she brought me to the corporate world. She's in property management. And I was still doing music. I was teaching music, and I was doing, I was doing tours, and I was traveling. And I realized that if I wanted to take the time and understand the relationship and what's good for both of us, me being all over the place was not healthy. She let me know that. She let me know that, hey, I'm a leader too. I don't really need you. I would love for you to be by my side, but I don't really need you. Wow. And this is a choice that you have to make. And it made me, I fought that because I didn't like being put in positions where I had to make a decision that had to last. This is me. My name is Stephen Drakes. The ego thing the egotistical thing that men do. That's just Stephen Drakes, and I was having fun. But she showed me a different side. She showed me there's a different. I like to call it corporate because she's, I love the business suits. But then she said, I want you to think business suit, not just wear the business suit. Think business suit. And I hadn't had that before. And it made me nervous, but it intrigued me. It intrigued me enough to where I stuck around and I tiptoed around. And I said, okay, I'll listen. With my nose in the air, I'll listen. Okay. whatever you want to say, I'll listen, but it worked.
Wow.
And all along, I didn't know that she was setting me up. She was setting me up to be the man that I am now, to think to myself and say, you can be a better man. Mm-hmm. You don't have to just lead yourself. You can be a leader of a household. And that was a turning point for me.
Mm. Man, here's the thing. As Christians, we go to the Bible for our example. I love everything you just said. I think that a lot of people can look at your situation and say, you were fortunate, you were blessed, that God put this person in your life, and you eventually took the signs and went down a path. Some people believe that marriage literally is not for them. And they look in the Bible and they see, well, you know what, you have people, you have Daniel wasn't married because he was a eunuch, but you have Jesus wasn't married, Paul wasn't married. And so they will say, marriage is not for me. So one side says God has created somebody for everybody. We just don't always find that person, or we're not willing to become that person that can join with them in a healthy relationship. What do you say to those who say, you know what, marriage just ain't for me? You know, is that a real thing where even in an ideal situation, there are some people who are just not called to be married?
I think that there are possibilities. I think that every human being has a right to have their own decision. Personally, I think there's a fear. I also think that being able to be a team player has a lot to do with that. A lot of people, including myself, you know, at a certain point, I was scared to share. I didn't want to share. You know, I have some friends who are, you know, their mindset is, I'm not the marriage material.
Yeah.
I'm sure you heard that before. What makes you marriage material? You're only marriage material. You're only not marriage material if the person that you want to marry tells you that you're not marriage material.
Yeah.
You see, so I think it's a mindset. It's a mindset, and it's people are gonna hate me for saying this, but I think there's a disability in the understanding. Now, if you have an understanding of yourself and what you're still looking for a woman, and you still say that you can't find that or in a mate, then fine. But if you're hindering yourself from taking the next step because you're not able to communicate your fears, or you don't want to share your time and space with someone, that's a different story. You know, or that I'm sure you know someone. I have a couple friends, and I know of people that have life partners, like buddies who I know have girlfriends for over 15 years.
Yeah.
That's a marriage. It's a marriage.
Yeah.
You have really joined everything. If you've been with someone for 15 years, you're taking time out of your day to see how the person feels, to let the person know how you feel, how your day is. And when you're single, you don't really care about that kind of stuff unless you're pursuing. But if you continue that habit for 15 years, that's a marriage. That there is a hindrance behind the scenes that you probably don't want to admit to yourself. You know what I mean? It's being a team player. Being a team player is a very, very big thing in marriage, in business, in personal friendships, in any relationship. Being a team player is one of the biggest attributes you need to have.
I love that. And I want to talk about when we think about escaping the single life, there is a point where a lot of people in marriage, newlyweds, maybe after a couple years, they let themselves go because they're like, you know what? I've arrived. I finally got the man or woman of my dreams. And now I can just be on autopilot now. I don't have to have those intro conversations where I'm, you know, puffing myself up to be this person. I don't have to be impressing her or impressing him. I can just be. And we realize that marriage is about maintenance. Otherwise, I'm going to be back on that single life one way or another. Right. Yeah. So what are some things like you're about to have an anniversary in a couple months. We're both married in September.
Right.
What are some things that you have learned after marriage maybe some conceptions that had to change in your mind about how to maintain a good marriage in the midst of a career, particularly in the music industry, as a father with the hobbies, and even having some personal space for self-care. How do you find ways to thrive and balance all of that?
You know what? You said a very, very important thing. There's a lot of attributes. You know, the typical saying that we have nowadays is lighting the fire, sparking, you know, bringing the spark back to a relationship. That comes in many, many forms. Personal space is a big thing. That's, you know, and I just want to talk about that for a quick second. That's a big thing that a lot of relationships or a lot of marriages, either they have it and don't realize how important it is, or they don't have it and they're used to the mundane, you know, everyday cycle, and this is just what it is, and it's boring. I have a friend who I sang at his wedding. Their relationship now to me is beautiful. Back then, I could see that they were friends. They were having issues before they even got married. They split for a while. And he called me one day and he said, he's like, man, you know, everybody calls me Drakes. He's like, man, Drakes, we don't have anything in common. And I said, that's exactly why you're together.
That's it.
That's it. So we had a conversation. He's not a musical guy. He works for the post office. But what he did though, is he decided to get his health together. See what I mean? I said, are you attracted to your wife? He said, yeah, but she's letting herself go. I said, do you think you're letting yourself go? I am. He admitted it, which I praised him for, because admitting it is always the first step. You have to let go of your ego. What he decided to do, though, is be the bigger person and said, you know what? Let's both get our health together. That way it didn't seem like he was trying to force her to come back or force her to see her way. He was giving her an insight to something to help her life longevity, help her feel better about herself as a woman. They joined together. Now every morning they're posting about how they're running and working out together. And it's the happiest, one of the happiest marriages that I see, that I know personally as a friend. And I think that that's something you need to do. And it's on both parties. You have to step outside of your comfort zone. We all go to work and we all do a 9 to 5, and we come home and it's the same thing. Your wife cooks dinner. You play with the kid while she's cooking dinner. You're tired. You go to bed. How about everybody goes for a walk? How about that? How about you leave your work at work? Find something that you know betters yourself. Introduce it to your partner and say, this is not just about me. I want you to feel better about yourself, because when you feel better about yourself, you make me feel better.
Yeah.
Not only that, we look better. And it's the right thing to do. You know what I mean? You have to find a middle ground, no matter what it is. It could be one out of a billion things, but you have to find that one middle ground. Do it together.
I love that. I love that. Now, from a biblical standpoint, what should a good marriage look like? As I said, as I alluded to, we don't see a lot of good examples in the Bible of good. We see a lot of dysfunction. You know what I mean? We see Abraham and Sarah and lies and mistrust. Like, we don't really see that. And we always hear, well, it's supposed to be like Christ and the church. But I'm sitting here like, man, where do I get instruction from the word of when I'm on the outs with my wife, when I'm trying to please her? I don't know what works. Like what is a biblical example that we can follow, or the biblical code that says, here is how you're supposed to navigate the marriage playing field, as it were?
I don't think there is a biblical code. Because when we're trying to invite people, let's say we're trying to invite people to church, one of the very I guess the most common statements that we make to people that we're trying to bring on is we say, I want you to interpret the word how you interpret it. I'm not going to try to force it on you. You know, when you try to force things, when salesmen or saleswomen try to force things on certain people, they come to your door and you know they're selling something. you automatically put your guard up.
Mm.
You have to be able to say, however you envision me as a man or you as a woman. I don't want to make an example from the Bible. Like you said, it seemed like there was a lot of destructive relationships in the Bible, which were very impactful, though. You need to see that. Everything can't be perfect. You needed to see that, right? Mm-hmm. You have to be willing to live and learn. Everything is not in a book. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. What I do believe, though, and here's a personal example. We were raised Seventh-day Adventists. Mm-hmm. That's all that I know. I love the fact that I am a follower of God. Mm-hmm. I love the word because I have my own understanding as a man, not how I was taught as a child, and this is what Bible says, and this is what we understood. When you leave that nest and you're forced to fly on your own, you interpret life in a different scope, in a different light, right? But that peacefulness, that teaching is always in you. So what I started to do was, so what I'm saying is pretty much my wife, she's a Christian, but she wasn't raised Seventh-day Adventist. That was a major thing before I even decided to ask her to marry me. Because I don't believe that you have to walk around preaching the gospel every day. I don't believe that. I believe the gospel lives through you in the goodness of your heart. People should see that before they hear it, right? My wife had that. She didn't just know the scriptures. She can't quote any Psalms, but she had the goodness in her heart. Plus, not only that, she was open. She was open to being under God's umbrella. That right there was just enough for me to say, you know what, I don't want to push you to think how I think and think how I was raised. I want you to be your own person. In the meantime, I have the qualities of what I think a Christian man should be. Mm-hmm. And it's nothing but positivity. Mm-hmm. There's nothing negative in trying to be a good Christian. Mm-hmm. At least there shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. But that's an interpretation.
Yeah. Let's jump into this case study. So I was looking for examples. Now Jamie mentioned in the comments that Solomon has great examples of what a good marriage should be. And Jamie, I went there. You know what I said? I said practically that didn't work for me because Solomon had 1,000 wives. He had like 700 wives and 300 concubines. And practically I said when I read Proverbs, I was reading him academically and theoretically talking about what a good woman should be like. And, right. Great counsel about avoiding the adulteress and, being faithful, all those things. But when I saw practically looking at his life, I saw him acquiescing to women that were unequally yoked, that they were worshiping idols. And so he was like, well, just to please you, I'll build this statue to Moloch or whatever, what have you. Yeah. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to find a bad example and we learn what not to do. So I went to Samson because I was thinking about escaping a single life. I was thinking about people who slept around outside of marriage. And I didn't see too many examples. Samson was the first person who came to mind. Mm-hmm. And when I see Samson, the very beginning, once there's a miracle of his birth and he is a judge. He's raised in the time that the Philistines are oppressing Israel. It says that he sees this Philistine woman. And as soon as he sees her, he goes to his parents saying he wants to marry her. Like straight off jump. Like, so not like, oh, I want to talk to her. I want to court her. I want to see where her head's at. He basically is wanting to go straight to marriage. And I want to talk about, first of all, why you think he might be trying to rush straight to marriage, what's going through his head. And then what do you tell a young man or young woman who, just like Samson, is like, yo, I found somebody, they're attracted. I'm tired of being in the single life. I just want to jump into marriage. What does that look like to you?
Marriage to me growing up, and of course everybody has their own opinion, but as a man, there's nothing higher than marriage as a man, at least in our mind.
Yeah.
There's no stronger force of commitment to a woman than marriage. That's the end all be all. You have me, mind, body, and soul. You have me. We all have run across Delilahs, right?
Yeah.
There's Delilahs everywhere. We need Delilahs. You do. I think the reason that Samson fell was because he wasn't used to Delilahs. You understand what I'm saying? What got me with Samson, and that's a great analogy, but what got me with Samson is because Samson already knew his strengths. He knew what his strength was. As men, we like to hear what our strengths are. If we know what our strengths are, we need somebody to embellish that. We do. We need somebody to tell us that they're thankful for them. That way we don't have to always show our strength. Just as long as everybody who's in our circumference knows that we have it. Samson knew what his strength was, and somehow, some way was still convinced, still convinced by, I'm not going to say Delilah, I'm going to say a Delilah. He was still convinced by her to allow her to take away his strength. That in itself takes strength. To give up your strength takes strength. It's not just a weakness. The weakness was being involved in it and knowing. That was a weakness. You know, I can't say Samson was in a blind light because he knew. You know. But it took strength and time and energy to know what he was losing already because he thought he was in love. You know what I'm saying?
And then he ended up losing that which got him in trouble, his eyes, right?
Yes.
And so what's interesting with Samson though is that he sees, he wants, he takes. And because of the strengths that he had, this was natural. This is what a lot of men feel. A lot of men who attracting women comes easy to them. Right. Displays of strength and power are natural to them. And those strengths might be in the business or corporate world. They might be physical. Maybe they're a good football player. Maybe they're muscular. In Samson's case, he was the man because this great enemy of Philistia was under his subjection. He's just wiping them out left and right and center. And so his greatest strength became a weakness because he thought he could put his strength, his faith in that and say, well, I can just blindly follow whoever it is who is capturing my eye and then just go to bed with them. Right. And so I'm not even going to talk about Samson, the womanizer. I want to talk about Samson, the serial monogamist, because even before we get to Delilah, there's several other instances where he is engaging with women and he's like, I got to have this woman. I got to have this woman. What do you say to someone who they cannot be by themselves? Right. They're trying to escape the single life, but they've just got to be with somebody and they're jumping from relationship to relationship. Right. And how does somebody get out of that lifestyle of just going boom, boom, boom all over the place, maybe misinterpreting their strengths and their weaknesses, as it were?
You need someone to tell you no. You know, you need the word no. That's something that we as men, we fear. So what we do is we mask it by continuing to move sideways. We keep jumping because, as we stated before, it's a natural fear that some men are not able to communicate. We don't want to seem weak. We don't want to be to admit where we're wrong sometimes. We don't want to admit that, these are things that we need because we don't want to seem like we need anything sometimes. You know what I mean? It's a fear. To me, it's a fear. It's a fear of communication. It's a fear of growth. And like you said, the prime example is you don't know yourself. Take time to know yourself. If no one tells you no, you need to learn how to say no for yourself. Once you know yourself, then there's certain things that you can avoid because you know what you want already. You know what you will and will not accept. Take time for yourself. If you go into a marriage or relationship not knowing who you are, the person who you're in a relationship with will form yourself for yourself. And then you're lost. And then when you think you woke, you're awake now and you're unhappy because this is not who I want to be. Now you're in a situation where now you need to get rid of something to rebuild. More time wasted.
Wow. That's scary. That's a scary thought. I mean, you think about it, every relationship that we have been that was the wrong one, and you alluded to before, the fact that I may be attracting the same person over and over again. They look different, they talk different careers, but it's essentially the same thing. Right. And I believe this is what Samson's problem was. And we're wasting time because until something in us changes, not only will we attract the same kind of person, we'll be attracted to the same kind of person that is not for us, that God is not ordained for us. Yes. Right. And so there has to be a reckoning moment where we realize, as you mentioned, you take some time for you and you say, who am I really? Who do I aspire to be? Now, I talk about we had Myron Edmonds on not too long ago, and he always talks about having goals that are being goals as opposed to doing goals. So yes, I want to make $1 million. I want to do this. Like, nah, bump all that. Who do you want to be? Who do you aspire to be? And I believe that Samson did not have a B goal. He's like, I've already arrived. I just want to do this. I want to bed this person. I want to marry this person. I want to do this. I want to do that. He forgot where his strength came from. He forgot who put him in this place to begin with. You know what I mean? Yeah. So what is something that you take from this story? Because obviously Samson ends tragically. Of course, he takes down 4,000 people in his death. He's blind. He's been captured. He had lost his strength because, as you mentioned, Delilah got him to give up his strength, but now his hair starts to grow back. What do you take from that story that helps a brother who is serial monogamous, who is playing the field, or maybe somebody who wants to be married, but they're not married yet? What can you draw from that?
You said it yourself. Know where your strengths come from. Everyone's strength is different. Knowing that you have a God-given gift as a man to be a leader. Your strength to protect your home, your strength to provide for your home. Those are strengths that people take for granted. Yeah. The strength to communicate, to be the peace and the rock is a strength in the house. People don't recognize that because they take it for granted. They don't realize, like you said, Samson got his gift from God and he forgot about that. And after they took his eyes and they blindfolded him and he was between the pillars, what did he have to do again to get his strength back? He had to pray. He had to beg. He had to beg and plead for God to give his strength back. The humbleness. He had to be hurt.
Now, an argument could be made. I don't even want to cut you off. An argument can be made that he didn't have to go to that level, right? Like he could have. He was a judge for 20 years. He could have judged for 40 years. He could have found the woman of his dreams. He didn't have to end up like this, right? And so I like to think that while we should learn from the times we get hurt, how do we avoid from getting unnecessarily hurt? Because think about it, if you get hurt 3 or 4 times, learning or because you have not learned the lesson you should have learned the first time, those were wasted efforts. So you can say, yes, you had to be hurt once, but like 4 and 5 and 7 times. So now you have a lot of brothers, a lot of sisters who are bitter and they're resentful because they feel like the problem was with the person out there who hurt them as opposed to looking inwardly,
That's a very, very, very good point. That's more along self-esteem. That takes a lot more strength than people actually know. We know that when our moms or our fathers used to tell us, don't touch the stove. It's hot. It may not even been hot at that moment. They were trying to foretell us to say, don't do that because I'm trying to keep you away from a situation that could potentially hurt you. Just so happens that we ended up touching the stove one day when it's hot.
Yeah.
Will we touch the stove again, or the next time we're on the stove, will we step a couple of inches back and then make a move? We'll be a little more precautious. So it's not about the fact that you're being hurt. Number one, being hurt is okay. Getting hurt is okay. It's being repetitively hurt by the same thing. That's the issue. When you're trying to avoid, my father, he always used an example and he always said it. And it's, I need to put on a t-shirt just for him. But he always told me, if you travel down Route 1 going south, you're going to end up in DC. If you travel down Route 1 going north, you're going to end up in Baltimore, right? This we know for a fact. People can always tell you, if you head down this path, you're going to end up this way. Mama can always tell us, if you put your hand on the stove, you're going to get burnt. We always got to find our own path. That takes strength in itself to go against the grain, you know. But that's the hurt that I think a lot of people need to experience. If you and I know that I like your point saying that, you know, does everybody need to be hurt? No, everybody doesn't need to be hurt. Some people get lucky, and some people find their soulmate right then and there. Or some people decide, I just want to be by myself. But everything is a leap of faith. Every relationship is a leap of faith. Every interview that you have with a new job is a leap of faith. Every time you decide to take a second date with someone, it's a leap of faith. You may be hurt. You may be hurt because you may experience something that you've never experienced before. You're not used to it. If he makes you feel some kind of way, could that feeling or emotion be hurt? Or is it confusion? Or is it intriguing? You see what I mean? You just have to be honest with yourself. Like you said, once again, you need to know yourself. You can eliminate a lot of the little things because you're always going to grow and learn new things. That's part of the spark in a relationship. Stepping outside of that comfort zone, both of you, and then joining together in the new comfort zone to repeat the same process. That's the fire. You know what I mean? But if you don't know what you're not willing to accept, you might be lost for a long time.
And then to add to that, going back to what you said, the time that you spend away from the field, as it were, we have to acknowledge that there's changes that we have to make. And in a lot of cases, we can't make those ourselves, right? I think of the kind of person I was back when we were hanging out back in the day, doing all kind of foolishness. You couldn't have told me that there was anything wrong with me from a marriage material standpoint. Like I said, if I eventually get married, she's getting a catch, right? She's getting just this prime catch. And I can do this, and this, as opposed to I need to have some divine intervention to show me that there were some problems, some things I needed to change. I needed a little bit of therapy. I needed to fall down. I needed to get on some bad times. And I had to say, you know what? I can't trust myself. You know what I mean? I can't trust how my perception of myself is. God had to basically put people in my path, including my wife, or the woman who became my wife, to show, you're not, you know what I'm saying? Like kind of what happened with you, where you're thinking, you know, I can just play this tune and all these women are swooning like, oh, great stuff. And they're like, no, I'm not impressed by that because I see you going here, but you are here. And I believe God puts people in our lives to say, you know what? I'm trying to get you here. If all of us feel comfortable where we are, where we think that we are in our strengths, we will never get to where we need to be. And that's why we have individuals to pull us up. And Jamie mentioned how, you know, the bitterness gets the best of so many people because they've had bad experiences. So you know what? There are no good men out there. There are no good women out there. No, a lot of times we have to work on ourselves. And unfortunately, many times we cannot do the work ourselves. We have to have God has to put some kind of resource in front of us to show us the mirror, to say that you think that you're attractive. Look how ugly you really are. Yes. But here's also the potential. So not just to put somebody down, there is potential. You have greatness, right? Your wife saw greatness in you beyond what you saw in yourself.
Yes.
And she was able to, and I believe God was speaking through her to say, I'm trying to get you up here. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. And I appreciate Jamie's comment as well. That's an easy speak, a quote that's going around. There are no good men out here. There are, and people will jump on that bandwagon without even a question. That's the social life that we're living in now, where it's easy to make an excuse. You know, it's easy. It's easier because you don't have to make a decision for anyone else but yourself. It's easy. You're avoiding confrontation. You're avoiding fears. I told you the main reason that I chose my wife is because she initially told me no. Being a friend, a true friend, as my wife is to me and your wife is to you, and as many husbands and wives should be to each other. Yeah. Being a true friend means being truthful, period. Even when it comes down to dinner.
Okay. Talk about that.
I mean, you have to be honest. There was a time, let me tell you something. Maybe the second reason. It's definitely top 3.
Okay.
My wife is an excellent cooker. She's an excellent cook. If she couldn't cook, we wouldn't be this far.
Wow. Okay.
I'm telling you, regardless.
Yeah.
My mother cooks. My father cooks. They taught me how to cook. You need to know how to cook. That's just me. Yeah. If you didn't cook, okay. Can it be put to the wayside? Maybe. But there's a number of things. Now, she loves to cook, though. Cooking actually is comfort for her. Like going to the gym is comfort for me. So I bring healthy things to the table. We indulge in the information and the food together. It works for the best of us. She loves to cook. It's comfort for her. I love to eat. We indulge in that together. Yeah. It seems small, but it's impactful. There was a time where my wife had made a meal and I wasn't really keen on it. It didn't taste good to me. There's always that funny, people make comedy jokes about it. People make jokes about it. You know, would you tell your wife that there's not enough salt or there's too much salt or it's not good at all? You need to tell her. Yeah. If you never tell your wife that you don't appreciate this particular meal, let's say the particular meal is a situation as well. If you don't tell your wife the truth, she's going to continue to cook the meal because she assumes that you like that meal.
Yeah, yeah.
Which means that you're not being honest with yourself, right? Because now you're forcing yourself to be someone else for someone else. You're losing yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's not a compromise. That's a forfeit. I'm being honest.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the key to that, though, is when I told my wife, you know what she did automatically? And this is, I paused because when I said it, I think it was a long day after work. And sometimes you're tired and your honesty level is on 1,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're just telling the truth because you're tired. I didn't appreciate the meal. I said, babe, it's not good. It's not one of your best. She said, oh, okay. Maybe I forgot exactly what her words, but she thought of some different scenarios as to why that particular meal may not have been its best. But she didn't bark at me. She didn't come with a negative rebuttal. She didn't come in straight at me and say, you know what? You're mean.
Yeah.
You know, I see Mr. Daniel saying in the comments saying being nice is a subtle form of deception. And yes, it is. It is. You can lose yourself in being nice. You can lose yourself in being mean. It's also, being mean is also a way, I think, of masking your true feelings. I think it's just another sign that a lot of men have to do. We think we have to poke our chest out everywhere we go. Yeah. You do not. You do not. That's a mask. But the fact that I was able to tell my wife and communicate that I didn't appreciate this meal, it wasn't the one of her best. And she said, okay. She didn't say she's going to try another one. She said she's going to try to do better. Yeah. That right there is growth. That is stepping outside of your comfort zone. That's a leap of faith that both parties need to take in order to say, I'm not actually at my best. I can be better, and you helped me be better because you were honest with me.
Wow. So let me ask you this then, because, and I love that Ase is the king of niceness versus kindness. And so when you are single, there's more of a temptation to patronize, right? You're single and the girl or the man that you're dating cooks a meal that's not up to standard. And you are afraid of pushing them away. You say, oh, that was great. And exactly what you mentioned happens, right? And it's not just a meal. It could be anything. It could be something they did, something they wore, something, you know what I mean? And so being nice in that situation, as you mentioned, invites more of the same. But I guess the last question I have there is, Is there a point where you change? In other words, are you more likely to say, you know what, let me find a better way of saying it versus maybe now that, like when you're single, is there a way to say, you know what, I don't want to discourage this person. Maybe I know that they are someone who is very sensitive. I may look at that as a liability, but God has created them. I know the Nixons always talk about that. They always talk about these opposites attract, and what you look as a liability is really an asset. So maybe I'm saying, you know what, I know she's really sensitive. So maybe before we're married, I'm more likely to say, you know what, yeah, I'm less likely to be honest, but versus now that I'm married, I'm more honest now. Does that sound reasonable, or should we always be, even from the first date, should we always be straight up and honest and not even worry about what the repercussions might be?
I think personally, yes. Typically, yes, you should always be honest. Is that always the case? No, because your goal is different. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're in a bar. Your goal driving to the bar was, let's say, to get drunk. Let's be honest. You're going to a place where they sell alcohol. You had a goal in mind, so you traveled that route. You took your time and used your energy to travel that route because you knew what destination you wanted and you knew what you're trying to fulfill. Being the nice guy and being honest up front are two separate things. I think what you need to look for from the very beginning is respect. Respect will pull the wool from over the eyes for both parties. All right. Respect helps you respond in a certain way where you're being cognitive of not trying to hurt a person's feelings, but standing firm on what you believe. You know what I mean? Remember, your mother, you probably remember this, but mothers and parents, we teach our child, they need to learn how to say no because we're so scared because we're not always going to be around them. Learn to say no. You see a stranger, you see something new, learn to say no. The older you get, you meet more strangers. Your wife was a stranger at one point.
Yeah.
We learned to say no at one point, but we showed a representative.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
We showed a representative of ourselves. Now, I'm sure she did as well. She may have been honest, but if there was something that she really didn't like, maybe she tried to avoid that situation to where she didn't put herself in a situation where she had to be disrespectful. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That is also a germ as well. Now, initially, it's the roses, it's the butterfly, it's the roses, it's smiles, and everything is a representation of itself, and everything is an avoidance because you don't. If your room is junky, but you really want this person around you, you're not going to invite them to your room because you don't want them to automatically see your room because they're going to attach the dirtiness of your room to your lifestyle.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So what do? You avoid that situation out of respect for yourself, not for them, for yourself. If you teach yourself self-respect, it's called social awareness. If you're socially aware with yourself, you know how to approach situations, you know how to state what it is that you will deal with, what you like and what you do not like, and you can communicate that peacefully. Because at the end of the day, as men, all we really want is peace.
Yes, that's it.
That's it. There's going to be things along the way that you can't, that you're not going to like. When you get there, are you man enough? Are you woman enough to communicate that peacefully? That's the key. All you can do is your best, peacefully. The other party either accepts it or they don't.
And I think that is a key to a successful relationship where I'm willing to accept criticism. Hopefully it's said in a way that's respectful. It's said in a way that is uplifting. But at the end of the day, if I have made a commitment before God and man to be with this person, I need to make sure that boundaries are not crossed. if there's something that's uncomfortable, if there's something that needs to change about me, right? I have to be open to be able to receive that criticism. And I also have to be willing to not be nice and just tell a lie and be dishonest with my spouse and with myself. I have to be willing to say, you know what? I have to find a way to convey that to them. Jamie mentioned in the comments how I believe it was her husband got something for her regarding her weight. You know what I mean? So instead of saying, oh, I don't like the way you look or whatever have you, that might not have gone over very well. There is a way to communicate your displeasure. And I'm still learning. We're all still learning this. There's a way to communicate displeasure in a way that it might even hurt at first, right? I mean, when that new meal plan comes in, if I get a new meal plan from my spouse, or if I say, you know what, I don't like this particular dress that you wear, I'm gonna buy you a new one. There might be some apprehension when they first see it because they connect the dots and they say, oh, you're getting this for me because you don't like this about me. So I can either, as the receiving party, say, you know what, I'm upset about it. I don't like you did that and get oversensitive. Or I can say, you know what, this person who I have declared my love to spend my life with, they want what's best for me. And this is only another means for us to have a stronger relationship. Yeah. And so I think that's a beautiful key you hit on, where you were able to say, babe, you are capable of better food than this. You know what I mean? So even if it was more blunt than you would have liked because it was a long day at work, she got the message. So she was a bigger person to say, you know what, I'm capable of better. Let me get back to the table. That's an opportunity that might have been lost had she been in her feelings, or had you been the nice person to say, I'm just going to let it go. That just don't work, right?
Correct. It's a two-way street. I think you have to be willing. So it's not just communication from one party. You have to be willing to listen and know that things are always changing. Whether you decide to change, things around you are always changing. And in order to move forward or grow within, you have to adapt. Here's a prime example. My buddies and I always talk about it in the gym. And it's funny to me. But I had to let one of my buddies know, and they're not married. You know, one is trying to get married and one is just like, no, I don't care right now. I have a girlfriend. She's content. I'm content. We're fine. So everybody talks about how women dress on social media. They literally take their time to please the eye of whoever's looking. They know that they have this amount of followers. You literally know how many followers you have.
Right.
You literally know. How many followers did God have? He didn't care about followers. But we literally know how many followers we have on social media. Every time we post something with the intent of whatever it is, positivity, negativity, informative, whatever it is, we know that there's a possibility that each one of our followers will see that. Right now, there's a stream of beautiful women going down social media, and they're wearing, you know, things that don't leave a lot of imagination. That was one thing that I had to have a conversation with my wife early in the relationship about. If you want to change me, change my outlook of you. Right? If you don't want the fear, which these things are natural fears, and these are germs. I call them germs because there's germs everywhere. But you constantly clean. Germs are still returned, but you still can make the conscious effort to clean, right? Why would I want to be beside someone who needs that attention? As men, we may not admit it, but it makes us feel weaker. Because the same thing that we're supposed to uphold and we feel so proud about is halfway clothed. So you walk out in public and other men see that, there's not a lot of imagination that needs to happen in that process. So now you're not only fighting, trying to be the nice guy. Now you're fighting your real thoughts of how you feel when you're out in public. So now you're battling two wars. There's a war outside and there's a war inside. How strong is your communication? Are you able to communicate and say, babe, like you said, the way to say everything, right? Babe, you look beautiful in that dress. Is there anything else you can wear? That's not, it's not that easy, right? Because you respect your woman enough to want her to love herself. You don't want her to feel like she's not beautiful, because what my wife used to do is, well, I want to feel beautiful. How do you go against that? How do you combat that? Because now, is the beauty for you or is the beauty for me? You see what I mean? How do you combat that? How do you communicate that respectfully? Respect is the key. Communication is also key, but respect. If you have enough respect, you have enough respect to communicate with someone. Yeah. You have enough respect to listen to that person communicate. You have enough respect to admit that you're not always right. And even if you are right, if it's a fact that you are right, there's a way to convey that message to where you both understand we don't always have to agree, but we can also live in peace.
Yeah. Wow. Man, I know we're over on time. I did want to, you brought up something I had to ask about.
Sure.
Because Samson, as we saw, was a slave to his eyes. And you talked about your wife being attractive and trying to attract potentially other men in your eyes. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's not even her goal, but she's wearing things that, whatever, what have you. Is it important if you're looking for a mate, do looks matter, right? Do you want your spouse, or do you need your spouse to be attractive to other men? Or is it like, I can be like, a lot of women will say, he's beautiful on the inside and I just grow to love him and God brought us together and I've connected to his heart. Like, what does that look like to you, to where the importance of appearance, when, of course, in some cases, some people are only going off of appearance. How important is appearance?
I'm not going to sugarcoat it at all, my man. I'm not. I didn't know my wife's personality when I first met her. I was attracted to her looks. Now that attraction and that beauty is sustained by inner beauty. Yeah. Once the ugliness comes out, it doesn't matter what you really look like on the outside. When I first met my wife, and to this day, she's gorgeous. I'm not gonna lie. I think my wife is gorgeous. No matter what she wears, from her pajamas to her professional look, she's beautiful to me. What makes her even more beautiful is her heart, though. I know that if I'm ever in need, she's there. You know what I mean? I know if I ever need someone to listen to, she's there. If I'm hungry, she won't just take the time and make rotisserie chicken instead of hamburger helper. It's not a comparison to meals, but it's the fact that it's thoughtfulness behind it. It's a heartfelt movement and respect level behind it. So yes, looks were everything to me because that's what I saw it from. I took the leap of faith to see what was inside. I saw it and I made it beauty all around.
I love that. What's one takeaway that I think that is important here is we're talking about the honesty, the honesty with self, maybe even writing down a list. Cause I sat and did that. I actually did that at some point before my wife and I got together. I listed all of the things that were important to me, and looks was definitely on the list. I'm not gonna lie either.
Of course.
But there are plenty of people that I've met, people I've been involved with that had the looks, and the other stuff wasn't there, and it was a nightmare. That's what happened with Samson. The first woman that he was gonna get married to, she looked good on the outside. It was disastrous. Delilah was attractive. That was disastrous. That's not the whole picture. But I wrote down a list of the things that were important, and I prayed. I said, God, I need you to send this person to me, right? And I need you to massage this list because there's some things that I think that are necessary that are not necessary. Right. And there's some things that I have not considered to be important that need to be on this list. I can't do it by myself. So I think that's very important. The honesty factor that you brought up was fantastic. I think that's a difficult, and it's not just for women. We always say that women are so emotional and they're so sensitive, but we men are some sensitive creatures too, right? We're some emotional creatures.
We have emotions as well.
Yeah.
You know, we're sometimes scared to bring that to the forefront.
Yeah. Definitely. Man, I appreciate so much this conversation. We could go another hour. I know. But I just wanted to give you a chance because, you know, you're a musician, you're doing your thing. Is there anything that, like, if people want to hear you, if people want to, you know, check out your stuff, you've got, what do you have that's coming up that folks can hear your stuff on?
Sure. Well, currently I'm working on, this is my senior album, I could call it. I am pretty much done with it. It should be out in September. September is an important month for.
Yes, sir.
Needs to be the basis of our conversations.
Yeah.
So that should be coming out. It's called Open Water. You know, we can talk about that later. But right now, I have music on all platforms, anywhere that you can find any digital platform, iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify. Stephen Drake's is the name. You can find it.
Yeah. Well, praise God for you, man, and praise God for this conversation. Again, I never have imagined this years ago, and just to see where you have come, where we have come, is a testament to what God can do to anybody's life. So can you close us out with prayer?
Sure. Lord, we ask you for the strength to know our weaknesses. We also ask you for the humbleness to recognize them as well. Lord, as we go about our normal lives in our busy days, we ask that you please guide us and help us and surround us with your love and understanding. Please open our minds so that way we can actually be a beacon of light for others to understand. Lord, please protect us as we make any kind of moves during the day, as we sleep at night. Protect our family and friends and those close to us. We love everything that you've ever done for us, and our mission is to make sure that you continue. We ask that you continue to show that same love for us. Please bless us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you so much for watching, for listening. Thanks, Drakes, for being on. And we'll catch you all again next week by God's grace. I might be off next week. I will let you guys know, definitely. But I appreciate you guys checking in. Take care.
Okay, guys.